Hello everyone, my name is Jessica Graham, and the point of this speech is to give you a little information concerning vaccines. So, to start off, did you know that Ben Franklin had a son? Not many people do. Died of smallpox, and in Ben Franklin's autobiography, he was quoted as saying, "In 1736, I lost one of my sons, a fine boy of 4 years old, by smallpox taken in the common way. I have long regretted, and regret since then, that I had not given it to him by inoculation." In the next few minutes or so, I would like to give you a bit of information pertaining to vaccines so you can make an informed choice instead of a choice based on social media hype. So, to get started, first, we're going to be going over a little bit briefly on how vaccines work within the body. Second, we're going to go over a little bit of history associated with vaccinations. And third, I'm going to go over some myths associated with vaccinations. So, to start off, much of the information that I'm going to share with you today is found through the CDC, which is the Center for Disease Control, and multiple articles and first-hand accounts. So, to start off, we need to understand why vaccines are important. We need to first understand how the body works and how the vaccines work within the body. So, first of all, the vaccines train your body's immune system to find and fight specific diseases. Pathogens are the bad guys, and left to their own devices, they will multiply and make us sick. Antigens are a piece or a byproduct of a pathogen, and the white blood cells and antibodies find specific antigens and they latch on. They attack and they keep them from multiplying. When it's all said and done, our immune system cells remember and know what to do if the pathogen is found again. Now, I've pulled up a nice little visual device for you on how vaccines work. This right here is a picture of a vaccine being inserted into the body. Inside of the vaccine, you are going to find an antigen. Antigens will enter the bloodstream and they trigger and produce antibodies. That's how it works. So next, we're going to go over a little bit of history associated with vaccinations. So, Edward Jenner is considered to be the founder of vaccinations in 1796. After he inoculated a 13-year-old boy with the vaccinia virus, which is known as cowpox and is related to the smallpox vaccine. A plague vaccine was also invented in the 19th century. In 1923, Alexander Glennie perfected a method to inactivate tetanus toxin with formaldehyde. Between 1950 and 1985, the polio vaccine came to be and thankfully had eradicated the disease from many places around the world. By the late 1960s, vaccines were available to protect against mumps, which was in 1967, and rubella in 1969, and then they were combined into the MMR vaccine in 1971. In the 1970s, the smallpox vaccine was no longer needed. Wait for it, because it was eradicated. Throughout the years, new versions of these old vaccines and newer versions of vaccines have become readily available to the public. And now that we've gone over a little bit of history associated with vaccinations, I'd like to show you a little bit of evidence. So, the disease measles, back in the 20th century as a baseline, there were 503,282 cases. By 2006, there were only 55 cases. That is a 99.9% decrease. Sure, it's a little different now. We've all heard about Washington. Mumps, 152,209 cases as a baseline for the 20th century. In 2006, it was 6,584. That is a 95.7% decrease. Just a little bit of information. So we're going to move on. So for my third point, I would like to go over a bit of myths associated with vaccines. So one myth is that vaccines contain many harmful substances. The truth is anything can be harmful if used a ton, even water. The ingredients in vaccines may contain some harmful material, but they are in lower doses than things that we're exposed to in everyday life, such as mercury. Mercury can be found in some contact lens solutions, and I'm sure many of you use contacts. Another myth is that vaccines cause autism. A 1998 study that raised concerns about possible link between the MMR vaccine and autism was retracted because it was backed by bad science. In 2013, a CDC study showed that vaccines do not cause autism. And I've pulled up that study. And in this study, the objective was to evaluate the association between autism and the level of immunologic stimulation received from vaccines administered in the first 2 years of life. The results were found of ASD associated with a 25-unit increase in total antigen exposure was 0.999%. For age 3 months, for cumulative exposure, it was a 0.999%. For cumulative exposure to age 7 months, there was a 0.999%. And for cumulative exposure to age 2 years, similarly, no increased risk was found for autistic disorder or ASD with regression. And ASD stands for the autistic spectrum disorder. In conclusion, this study with increasing exposure to antibody-stimulating proteins and polysaccharides in vaccines during the first 2 years of life, there was no risk of developing ASD, as I said, is autism spectrum disorder. Let's move on. In conclusion, we went over how vaccines work within the body, a little bit of history associated with vaccinations, and myths associated with vaccinations. So in conclusion, if you're still on the fence about vaccinating your children, please do some real research, because fake news and social media is not a credible source. And when it comes to the lives of our little people, we have to take these measures. We have to do our research. So, thank you.